through.
Yeah. So a lot of times when people pass, they pass into places that they didn't expect, you know, and it causes so much disillusionment. But if they knew the truth, if they knew the whole truth, they wouldn't be disillusioned, you know. They would actually know that where they are is a reflection of their soul, and all they need to do is work through their soul's emotions, and they'll get to a different place, and they'd know all of those things, you know. But because of the untruth that exists on the earth, there's this big untruth that exists here on the earth of, you know, when you die, you all of a sudden become all-knowing. You know, and that's one of the worst untruths on earth that there is, because people pass with that expectation. And imagine that, if you had that expectation in you and then passed, just how how crushing it would be to find yourself in the first sphere, or in the hells of the first sphere even, for a period of time, if you believed that.
That's what my mum believed when she passed.
Yeah.
The angels were going to come and get her and take her up.
A lot of people do.
Most people do. Yeah. And then there's these New Age philosophies of when you die, you just automatically have a life review, and then you come back for the next one, right? And that teaching causes so much trouble here on earth, because a lot of people try to come back into bodies that are somebody else's body.
Wow.
Right? And so what happens is that you get this spirit possession thing going on over and over and over again, because these spirits think that they have to come back. It's the only way to experience life from now on. And it's quite sad, really, that a lot of the things that are going on earth, and a lot of the things going on in the first sphere, are the results of just teachings of error about what is really happening. And it's so important to correct error. And it's so important to address error whenever you get the opportunity. And just one statement of truth to a person can change their whole life. Just one statement of truth.
AJ, is it true that there's no power in the spirit world, but the power is here to make changes? Is that true?
The truth is that you have power everywhere to make changes. So there is you have just as much power here as you do in the spirit world, and the spirits have just as much power in the spirit world to change as we do here. And one of the really sad teachings of Christianity is that once you die, you're condemned or you're saved. Because the problem with that teaching is that it teaches you that you cannot get out of the condition that you're now in. So a lot of people pass into the spirit world believing that where they now are, they must stay for eternity. That is their torture, if you like. And it's such a damaging teaching. It just takes years and years and years of effort of spirits who are in a higher place to get through to that person that they do not have to stay in that place. It's just such a, you know, there are so many of these teachings that affect what happens in the person's life, their eternal life, for so long. There is so much pain going on in the first sphere of the spirit world right now that doesn't need to happen at all, because of these teachings that we're holding on to here on earth and then taking with us when we pass. And that's why truth is just so important.
Let's say I pass tomorrow. I've got all this error. I've got some love. So do I pass into the place that represents my error? Or is there an average between the two? How does that work?
It's a good question, yeah. Your soul is in a certain condition of love. There's two types of love, remember. What are they?
Natural love and divine love.
Right, so there's the two types of love. Now, the natural love is all about morals or morality, and divine love is all about receiving God's love into your heart, right? Now, you can receive some divine love but still have moral error, right? And at some point you will have to be confronted with that error to progress beyond that point. Now, what often happens is that we might pass, and we'll be in a place that matches our soul condition in love. So let's say right now your soul could be in a third sphere state. So you will pass and you can go to the third sphere. But let's say I've got a heap of rage in me still, which is like almost a first sphere rage, right? Well, I will be visiting the first sphere at different times, and that rage will be triggered and released. Right? So while your home might be in the third sphere, you may find initially that you don't spend hardly any time there at all, and you spend most of your time where your emotional injuries are. You deal with those emotional injuries, and then the home that's prepared for you is, by the way, not prepared for you. You prepared it, believe it or not. And the home that you have prepared for yourself by your life here, you will be able to live in, wherever that be.
So you go to where you've developed your love, not where your errors are. Is that?
You go
Yes,
where you
yes.
developed your love, but
Yes.
it's the real part of your love. See, a lot of times we're
Right.
receiving spirit love from spirits, which we then think is our love.
I
And
see.
do you know what I mean? We often have
Yeah.
often right at the moment will have an inconsistent concept or an incorrect concept about what my true loving condition is right now.
Because we receive love from spirits.
Because you're receiving love from spirits, so at times you feel loving and
Right.
you reflect that love. And so then you start thinking that it might be a part of your own love.
I see.
But all of God's laws work on your soul condition,
Right.
not anybody else's. So that's why the majority of people on earth pass into the first sphere, because it works on your own soul condition.
Yeah.
Now the key is for you to start addressing the emotions that cause you. Now if you, just the idea of having a feeling inside of yourself of wanting to look at your emotions puts you in a different condition of love. Do you understand that? Like, so just you having a desire to feel your own emotions places you in a higher condition of love. Because the majority of persons don't want to feel their own emotions. What do they want to do with them?
Suppress them.
They want to suppress them. What else? Deny them.
Project them.
Project them. They want other people to look after them, generally, don't they? That is an unloving space. So as soon as you even get into the condition where you even just want to feel your own emotions, straight away you're in a better space.
Even if you're not feeling them.
Even if you're not feeling them yet, right? You are already in a better condition
Right.
than you were just moments before choosing to not feel them. So every single change you make causes your condition to change straight away. Every single change you make towards divine truth causes your condition to shift. And every shift you make means that obviously when you pass into the spirit world, you will pass into a different location. And every one of you right now is preparing a home for yourself in the spirit world. In the first century I used to say to people, I'm going my way to prepare a place for you. In my Father's house there are many mansions. Right? And what I was referring to was that every one of you have a home, and some of you even have mansions in the spirit world, right, where you are developed in love enough to actually exist in those locations when you're in your sleep state. Right? Some of you will even have dreams of your home in the spirit world. Have any of you had that, where you've had a dream of a really nice location and you've woken up wondering where that is? Yeah? Well, that's your home in the spirit world.
I shook my head. I haven't. I'm always in darkness.
Cordy's really dark.
Stayed out place, Cordy.
I come visit you in my sleep. Your joint. Party on there. My place sucks.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
You've helped me realise that, like, on my visits to the Monash University, I had some really high experiences. Sometimes they last for weeks. And I started feeling like, when you're in a state of joy for 3 weeks, you start feeling like it's permanent.
Yes.
And you've helped me realise that that wasn't necessarily the love I'd developed. So that helped me become more honest
Yeah.
and real,
Yeah.
because then I would drop down into some dark states.
Yeah.
I've got people that I can talk to sometimes who, one I'm thinking of in particular, who lives in a beautiful state. And because he lives in a beautiful state, he doesn't feel he has to develop a relationship with God, because he already feels he's at one with God.
Yeah.
And I can look back and see how I was heading in that direction.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can see how
You can see how you
delusional.
can almost, delude yourself into a state.
Yes.
And this is where every sixth-sphere spirit is, actually. They're in a self-deluded state of being God. So
Yeah.
they feel so much love within themselves and so much joy within themselves that now they believe they are God themselves. Or they call themselves a fragment of God, some of them, but a lot of them just call themselves God. And you can get into that state, and it's a totally self-delusional state. It's not real.
In a sense, that's like the ultimate curse, isn't it? Because
it is
the longer you're there, the harder it is to get out of it.
Yeah, in the first century I called it the greatest sin. The greatest sin is the sin against the Holy Spirit. The sin against the Holy Spirit is when you decide to not receive divine love that's being offered to you because you believe you're already there, that come to you, and you'll be able to express your natural love. The main difference, though, between love in the sixth sphere state or on the natural love path and love in the divine state is that love in the sixth sphere state is very principled based. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that if you see a principle of truth, you act upon it whether you feel the emotion in your heart or not. You follow me? So let's say somebody was smacking their child in our audience. Now all of you will have different emotions about that, but if intellectually you would know the principle that the child is just reflecting the emotions of its parents in the audience in the first place. So therefore, how can you punish a child for reflecting something that the parents are actually denying within themselves, right? So you would say that you could see here, you could see that them smacking him might not be such a good idea. It's quite a damaging thing to do, in fact, to the child. But you could then go up to the person and say to them, "Oh, do you think you should be doing that," or whatever? All just coming from your intellect, couldn't you? Now you're acting in love, aren't you? Because you're acting based on the principle. And the principle in this case is what the Greeks used to call agape love, which is love based on principle. So in other words, I follow principles, and that's what causes me to love. Now, on the divine love path, it's totally different to that. You will watch that event, and you'll feel cut to the heart about what's happening to the child. You'll feel an emotion inside of yourself, right? And it won't be just based on the principle anymore. It'll come from your heart that's been opened in love. Do you follow me? There's a big difference between those two states. One is very principled love. The other is a love that generates from the emotional state, from the heart, right? And what happens on the divine love path is all of the love you express comes from your heart. It comes from your heart and is expressed. And in its expression, it is based around some of the principles on the natural love path, but it's a totally different feeling within the person. It's driven by the feeling, not by the thought of the principle. So when I talk to sixth sphere spirits now, I feel them to be very harsh at times, very uncompromising, because they're very principled. And they're not connecting at the heart level. Do you know what I mean? They're connecting at the mind level, but not the heart level.
They wouldn't even know how to do that, though.
Well, they don't know how to do it. That's part of the problem. And the issue is when you connect at the mind level, you do act based on principles that you've learned, but you don't act from the heart. All right? And so what I find, talking to many sixth sphere spirits, like I'll say to them, well, why did you let that person believe you were somebody else? Like quite often a sixth sphere spirit will connect to a person on earth like a medium and then let the person on earth believe they were somebody else. In the oneness movement that happens a bit with letting them believe they're God. You know, the spirit believes he's God, and so he connects with a person. So let's say I'm the spirit and I believe I'm God. I'm a sixth sphere spirit, I believe I'm God. And Peter's longing for divine love, for God's love, or what he thinks is God's love, and he thinks it's to do with this. And so I come along and I give him my love and I call it God's love. Right? Now, I haven't broken any principles inside of myself, have I? But I have broken a principle of truth, right? Unbeknown to myself. Right? And the principle of truth is God can only give God's love,
But they don't know that.
and God is an entity, but I don't know that. I might not know that. Or I might know God is an entity, but I'm thinking that I'm acting on God's behalf.
Right.
Or I might know God's an entity and I'm actually acting on God's behalf, but I know that inside of you, you think it's something different than what I'm doing. Now, would a person who really loves you from the heart want that for you?
No.
They wouldn't, would they? They'd want you to understand the truth of what's happening, then we're fine. Then the transaction's fine. You follow me? And so a lot of times what happens with 6 sphere spirit transactions or spirit transactions on the natural love path is they withhold truth, right, until they think you're ready to hear it. And by the way, when you decide to withhold truth from somebody until you think they're ready to hear it, how many times have you done that in a day? Right? Then you are actually acting in the same manner as these spirits are acting. Can you see how it develops really easily, that kind of attitude? But that is a natural love attitude. A divine love attitude is, how can I let you believe an untruth without, and me be a party to it? I would feel cut to the heart about that, wouldn't I? At the divine love level, and you know, at a heartfelt emotional level, I would feel cut to the heart that I've been a part of you believing an untruth. And so if I'm actually connecting emotionally with God, and I've got God's love flowing through me, I would not even allow that circumstance to develop. I'd do everything I possibly could to tell the person something different. I'd maintain the connection, but try to help the person come to truth. Yeah? Can you see the difference between the two states? Yeah.
But isn't truth coloured by the injuries that you still have within your being?
Well, our personal truth certainly is, but God's truth isn't. And this is the principle we need to all grasp, is that divine truth is God's truth, and it's not coloured by our personal experience. Our truth is our personal truth, and quite often it's error. Quite often it's what is erroneous that is now within us that we believe to be true. And the key for us is to learn how to tell the difference. And it's very hard sometimes, isn't it, like, to tell the difference? You know, so let's say your husband comes home and yells at you. What does your truth say? Give him a blast back, right? You know, it's not very just. He should, if he's going to yell at me, I'll give him a blast back. You know, that's our justice, right? That's our truth. We feel like giving him a blast back, so we do. Is it divine truth?
No.
No, because if we were in a state of love, we wouldn't feel like giving him a blast back, would we?
So what do? Just sit there and take it? Question.
It is a legitimate question for sure. And yes, if you're in a divine love state, you would sit there and take it, and you wouldn't even think it's taking it. You wouldn't even think it, because to you it's like nothing is happening, really. Emotionally, you know exactly what's going on within him. You know what's most. You probably say to him, "Well, yeah, you've got some emotions there, haven't you, Mal? You've got some emotions there, haven't you?"
And so if it does register as taking it, or you know, an imposition, then that means you've still got stuff within you.
Totally,
To deal with.
totally.
Okay.
Yep, totally. Yep. Yeah. And once you're in an abundant state with God, you won't feel like you're taking anything from anyone. Like I've been tortured, right? And I didn't at the time feel I was taking anything from anyone. And that's the state you'll be in. That state. It's a wonderful state to be in.
So what state you're in now?
No.
What level are you at now?
Well, when I'm as angry as I am now, I'm back in the first sphere. But generally in the 7th sphere condition. I've been in the 7th sphere condition for nearly 3 years now.
So AJ, in that scenario, you've recognised you're taking it, and you've recognised the stuff within you. Does that then let the other person off the hook? You know what I mean? Like, you
legitimate question.
recognise that you've got the stuff, so it's resonating with you, but you're still receiving. I don't know how. I honestly
Let's
don't
look
see
at
how
let's
to
look at the
reconcile this.
let's look at the emotion off the hook, letting them off the hook. How many of you feel that if you were taking something from somebody and without giving something back to them, like I mean, so taking some anger from them without giving a bit of anger back or whatever, how many of you feel that you would let them get away with it? Quite a few will feel that if you're honest, like I so often. Now, that feeling of letting somebody get away from it is also a false belief in itself. Because who does God let anybody get away with anything? so can they really get away with it in the end? They can't, can they? Right?
Richard, haven't you also talked though about not allowing people to treat you in an unloving way?
Yeah, but let's say somebody was treating you unlovingly, right? You're in a one state with God, not even feel a single piece of pain about that. So if I'm feeling a bit of pain about that, then I'm obviously firstly not in a one state with God, but secondly, I'm also in a state where I still need to deal with some kind of emotion from it, because the law of attraction's working where I'm getting that from them, right? Yeah. So certainly remove yourself, that's fine, because that's an act of love towards yourself. Remove yourself from the situation, but focus on your own emotion about it. It's not them that's caused all this. It's your own emotion, it's your own attraction. Does that make sense? Certainly remove yourself because it's an act of love to do it. Remove yourself until you can be in a better state of love where you don't need to. You will need to do that. And then allow yourself to work through the emotion that caused the attraction. Yeah. And then once you do that, you'll be able to sit in a whole auditorium of people yelling at you and not feel a single thing from it.